Good morning, afternoon, evening. Respect. It's a cornerstone of healthy relationships and thriving communities, yet we've all encountered situations where it's been absent. Whether it's a colleague undermining your contributions, a friend dismissing your feelings, or even a family member crossing your boundaries, disrespect can cut deep. What do we do when someone doesn't respect us? Do we fight, flee, or simply endure it? Today, I want to offer 5 ways to handle such situations, not from a place of retaliation, but from a foundation of courage, self-worth, and connection. Before we can navigate disrespect, we must anchor ourselves in the unshakable truth of our worth. It's easy to believe that respect from others defines our value, but let me tell you something: your worth is not determined by someone else's opinions, actions, or approval. It doesn't hinge on a promotion, a compliment, or a nod of validation from anyone around you. Your worth is intrinsic, woven into the fabric of who you are. Owning your worth starts with how you speak to yourself. Pay attention to that inner dialogue. Is it kind or is it critical? Do you uplift yourself or do you diminish your accomplishments because you think they're not enough? Too often we internalize the disrespect we face, telling ourselves, maybe they're right, or I don't deserve better, but here's the truth: no one else gets to write the story of your value. That's your job. When you own your worth, you carry yourself differently. Think about this. Have you ever met someone who walks into a room with quiet confidence, not arrogance, but a sense of calm assurance? They're not looking for approval because they already know who they are. That's what owning your worth looks like. It's not about shouting your greatness to the world, it's about standing firmly in your truth, even when others can't see it. But let's be honest, owning your worth isn't always easy. We live in a world that often tries to tell us otherwise. Whether it's societal standards, past trauma, or moments when we've been dismissed or overlooked, the voices of doubt can creep in. That's why owning your worth is an intentional, ongoing practice. It's about reaffirming to yourself every day, I am enough. Not because of what I do, but because of who I am. One way to reinforce this is by celebrating your wins, no matter how small. Did you finish that project you've been procrastinating on? Celebrate it. Did you show kindness to someone even when it was hard? Acknowledge it. These moments remind you of your capabilities and the goodness you bring to the world. And here's a powerful exercise. Create a list of your strengths, qualities, and accomplishments. Not for anyone else, just for you. Write them down and revisit them whenever doubt creeps in. This isn't about ego, it's about truth. Finally, owning your worth means recognizing that you have the right to take up space. You have the right to express your needs, share your opinions, and exist unapologetically. You don't have to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You don't have to downplay your strengths to fit in. When you own your worth, you give others permission to do the same. It's a quiet yet profound ripple effect. By showing up as someone who knows their value, you inspire others to see their own. And when you face disrespect, owning your worth becomes your shield. It reminds you that their behavior doesn't define you, it reflects where they are, not who you are. Owning your worth isn't a destination, it's a journey. But every step you take toward embracing it strengthens your ability to handle whatever comes your way. Setting boundaries is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect. It's not always easy, but it's necessary. Boundaries define where you end and someone else begins. They communicate your limits, your values, and what you will and will not tolerate. Without boundaries, we risk being overrun emotionally, mentally, and even physically by the demands and behaviors of others. But let's clear something up. Boundaries are not walls meant to isolate us. They are bridges meant to create healthier connections. A boundary says, I value our relationship enough to be honest about what I need to keep it strong. Without boundaries, relationships can become strained, filled with resentment, or even broken. So how do we set clear boundaries? It starts with understanding your own needs and values. Ask yourself, What behaviors or situations make me feel uncomfortable or disrespected? What do I need to feel safe, valued, and respected in my relationships? Where have I been saying yes when I really wanted to say no? The answers to these questions give you clarity about what boundaries you need. Once you know your boundaries, the next step is to communicate them. And this is where it can get challenging, especially if you're someone who's used to keeping the peace or avoiding conflict. When communicating boundaries, be direct but kind. For example, if someone speaks to you in a disrespectful tone, you might say, "I'd like to continue this conversation, but only if we can speak respectfully to each other." If a coworker constantly interrupts your personal time, you might say, "I value my downtime after work, so I won't be responding to emails past 6 p.m." Notice how these examples are firm but not aggressive. You're not attacking the other person, you're simply stating what you need. It's also important to remember that setting a boundary is not about controlling someone else's behavior, it's about protecting your own peace. You can't force someone to respect your boundaries, but you can decide how to respond if they don't. Here's the hard truth: not everyone will like your boundaries. Some people might push back, they might guilt trip you, get defensive, or even withdraw. This is especially true if you're setting boundaries with someone who has benefited from you not having any. But that's okay. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to honor your needs and uphold your boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable. When someone violates your boundaries, follow through with consequences. For example, if you've told someone you won't tolerate being shouted at, and they shout at you, you might calmly say, "I'm stepping away from this conversation until we can speak calmly." By enforcing consequences, you teach others that your boundaries are serious, not just suggestions. Boundaries also require consistency. If you set a boundary one day but let it slide the next, you send mixed signals. People won't know where you stand, and you might find yourself frustrated or disrespected again. Consistency isn't always easy, but it's essential. And let's not forget, boundaries aren't just about saying no to others, they're also about saying yes to yourself. They create space for you to rest, recharge, and focus on what truly matters. They remind you that your time, energy, and well-being are precious. One of the greatest gifts of boundaries is that they attract the right people into your life. The people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries, even if it takes them a moment to adjust. And those who don't respect your boundaries, they're showing you who they are and giving you the opportunity to decide if they deserve a place in your life. Setting clear boundaries is an act of self-love. It's a way of saying to yourself, "I am worth protecting. My peace is worth prioritizing," and when you honor your boundaries, you set the tone for how others will honor you too. When someone disrespects us, our natural reaction is often rooted in one of two extremes: fight or flight. We may feel a surge of anger, ready to lash out and defend ourselves, or we might retreat, avoiding confrontation altogether. Both reactions are understandable. They're part of our human instinct to protect ourselves. But there's another path, one that requires more effort yet yields better results: curiosity. Staying curious means resisting the urge to jump to conclusions or make assumptions about why someone is acting the way they are. It's about pausing, taking a breath, and asking yourself, what's really going on here? This doesn't mean excusing bad behavior or letting someone off the hook for disrespect. Instead, it's about seeking to understand before you respond. Let's break it down. Why curiosity matters. When we approach situations with curiosity, we open the door to empathy and clarity. Disrespectful behavior often stems from underlying issues: stress, insecurity, past trauma, or even simple misunderstandings. While this doesn't justify the behavior, understanding its root can help you navigate the situation with more intention and less reactivity. For example, a colleague who interrupts you during meetings might be struggling with their own need to feel heard. A friend who dismisses your feelings might be uncomfortable with vulnerability because of their own emotional barriers. By staying curious, you can start to see the bigger picture, which helps you respond in a way that's constructive rather than destructive. How to practice curiosity in the face of disrespect. Pause before reacting. When someone disrespects you, it's natural to feel a surge of emotion, anger, frustration, hurt. The key is to pause before you react. Take a deep breath and give yourself a moment to process. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What do I want to say or do? Will this response help or hurt the situation? This moment of reflection can help you shift from a reactive mindset to a more intentional one. Ask open-ended questions. Instead of immediately confronting the person with accusations or assumptions, try asking questions that invite dialogue, for example. I noticed that you interrupted me earlier. Was there something you felt strongly about? You seemed upset when I shared my opinion. Can you help me understand what's on your mind? It feels like there's some tension between us. Is there something we need to address? These questions show that you're open to understanding their perspective, which can diffuse defensiveness and pave the way for a more productive conversation. Stay focused on behavior, not character. Curiosity helps us separate the behavior from the person. Instead of thinking they're so rude or they're just a disrespectful person, focus on the specific action. This shift allows you to address the issue without attacking their character, which can prevent the situation from escalating. Seek to understand, not to win. In moments of conflict, it's easy to fall into the trap of trying to win the argument or prove the other person wrong. But true resolution isn't about winning, it's about understanding. When you stay curious, you prioritize connection over being right. This approach often leads to solutions that both parties can feel good about. The benefits of curiosity. When you stay curious, you create space for dialogue, growth, and resolution. You may uncover insights that deepen your understanding of the other person, your relationship, and even yourself. Sometimes you might discover that the disrespect wasn't intentional at all, a misunderstanding or a moment of thoughtlessness that can be resolved with a simple conversation. But curiosity also has its limits. If someone consistently refuses to engage respectfully, even after you've sought to understand them, it may be a sign that the relationship needs reevaluation. Staying curious doesn't mean tolerating repeated disrespect. It means giving the situation a fair chance before deciding how to proceed. Curiosity as a strength. Choosing curiosity over combativeness takes strength and maturity. It requires you to set aside your ego, resist the urge to react impulsively, and prioritize connection over conflict. But the rewards are worth it: healthier relationships, greater emotional intelligence, and the peace of knowing that you handled the situation with integrity. Discomfort is an inevitable part of life, especially when it comes to relationships and boundaries. It shows up in moments when we need to speak up, have hard conversations, or say no to things that don't align with our values. Yet so many of us avoid discomfort at all costs. We bite our tongues, swallow our feelings, and tell ourselves it's not worth the trouble, but the truth is, avoiding discomfort often comes at a much greater cost: resentment. Resentment doesn't appear overnight. It builds slowly, one unspoken feeling at a time. It grows every time you say yes when you want to say no, every time you tolerate behavior that crosses your boundaries, and every time you silence your truth to keep the peace. Resentment is heavy, and carrying it can take a toll, not just on your relationships, but on your mental and emotional well-being. Choosing discomfort over resentment means facing those hard moments head-on. It means leaning into the uneasiness of being honest, even when it feels vulnerable or risky. It's about prioritizing long-term peace over short-term avoidance. While it might feel difficult in the moment, choosing discomfort can prevent the buildup of frustration and bitterness that comes from not addressing issues. One of the most common sources of resentment is unspoken expectations. We often assume that others should know how we feel or what we need without us having to say it. When they don't meet these unspoken expectations, we feel hurt or disrespected. But the reality is, people aren't mind readers. It's up to us to communicate our needs and boundaries clearly, even if it feels uncomfortable to do so. Another form of discomfort comes from confronting someone's behavior directly. For instance, if a friend consistently shows up late, it's easier to brush it off than to say, "I feel disrespected when you don't honor our plans on time." But every time you let it slide, a small piece of resentment takes root. The discomfort of addressing the issue up front may feel awkward, but it opens the door for understanding and change. Discomfort can also arise when you're faced with the fear of rejection or conflict. What if they don't take it well? What if the conversation escalates into an argument? These fears are valid, but avoiding the conversation doesn't solve the problem, it just pushes it further down the road. But by addressing the issue sooner rather than later, you give yourself and the other person a chance to resolve it before resentment has a chance to grow. There's also the discomfort of disappointing others. Many of us are conditioned to be people pleasers, prioritizing others' needs and feelings over our own. Saying no can feel like letting someone down, and that can be hard to face. But constantly saying yes to avoid discomfort often means saying no to yourself. Choosing discomfort in these moments allows you to protect your time, energy, and emotional well-being, even if it means temporarily upsetting someone else. Choosing discomfort over resentment doesn't mean being harsh or confrontational. It's about approaching these moments with honesty and kindness. You can express your feelings without attacking the other person, and you can set boundaries without shutting people out. The key is to speak your truth in a way that invites understanding, not defensiveness. Discomfort is temporary. It might make your heart race or your palms sweat, but it passes. Resentment, on the other hand, lingers. It colors your interactions, breeds frustration, and can even lead to the breakdown of relationships over time. The discomfort you feel in the moment is a small price to pay for the clarity and relief that come from addressing an issue directly. In many ways, choosing discomfort is an act of courage. It requires you to step into vulnerability, to trust yourself, and to believe that your needs and feelings are worth addressing. It's not easy, but it's necessary if you want to build relationships rooted in respect, authenticity, and mutual understanding. Walking away can feel like the hardest thing to do, especially when we've invested time, energy, or emotion into a relationship, a job, or any situation. There's a part of us that hopes things will change, that the disrespect will stop, or that the other person will finally see our value. But there comes a point when staying does more harm than good, and knowing when to walk away becomes an act of self-preservation, not defeat. Walking away doesn't mean giving up. It means recognizing when a situation no longer serves your growth, well-being, or sense of peace. It's about acknowledging that while we can't control how others behave, we can control what we allow in our lives. Staying in a toxic or disrespectful environment often leads to feelings of helplessness, frustration, and diminished self-worth. Leaving, though difficult, is sometimes the only way to reclaim your power. The decision to walk away begins with recognizing patterns. Disrespect isn't always loud or overt sometimes. It's subtle but persistent. It might show up as someone dismissing your feelings repeatedly, failing to honor your boundaries, or belittling you in ways that seem minor but add up over time. Pay attention to how you feel in the relationship or situation. Are you constantly walking on eggshells? Do you feel drained, unseen, or undervalued? These are signs that something needs to change. Walking away often requires overcoming fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of being judged, fear of losing something or someone that has been a significant part of your life. These fears are valid, but staying in a situation out of fear only delays the inevitable. The discomfort of leaving is temporary, but the pain of staying in a harmful environment can linger indefinitely. Another challenge is the internal dialogue that can keep you stuck. You might tell yourself, it's not that bad, maybe I'm overreacting, or if I just try harder, things will improve. While it's important to assess situations objectively, it's equally important to trust your instincts. If something consistently feels wrong or toxic, it likely is. Walking away also involves setting aside the weight of guilt. Many of us feel responsible for others' happiness, even when it comes at the expense of our own. We worry about how our decision to leave might affect them, especially if they rely on us emotionally, financially, or otherwise. But the truth is, staying in a situation where you are disrespected doesn't truly help anyone. It only enables the behavior to continue. The act of walking away is not just about leaving a person, job, or situation. It's about stepping towards something better. It's about creating space for healthier relationships, opportunities, and experiences. It's about honoring your worth and refusing to settle for anything less than what aligns with your values and well-being. Walking away can take many forms. It might mean having a candid conversation where you state your decision and why. It could mean slowly distancing yourself from a person or situation over time. In some cases, it might involve a clean break, where you remove yourself completely to protect your emotional or physical health. The approach you choose depends on the circumstances, but the core principle remains the same: prioritize your peace and self-respect. There may be moments when you question your decision, wondering if you made the right choice or if you should have given it one more chance. This is natural, especially if you're someone who values loyalty and connection. But remember, loyalty to yourself is just as important, if not more so, than loyalty to others. Staying loyal to someone or something that harms you is not noble. It's self-sacrificing in a way that depletes you. Walking away doesn't erase the history or the good moments that may have existed in the relationship or situation. It doesn't negate the lessons you've learned or the growth you've experienced, but it does signal that you are ready to choose yourself, to move forward with clarity, and to open the door to new possibilities. Walking away is a deeply personal decision that requires strength, self-awareness, and courage. It's not a one-size-fits-all process, and it often involves a period of reflection, grief, and adjustment. But ultimately, it is an act of reclaiming your agency and ensuring that you are surrounded by people and circumstances that honor the respect you deserve.